So everything should kind of fit in the
I'm
back.
gonna fall down. I think I'm gonna cut this video like here. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Hi guys, how are you?
What's up?
So today I have my friend Christopher from America. Not from the USA, but we are currently in Japan. So this is a very special video. And
Peep the pandas.
yeah, there are pandas behind us getting drunk. So we are going to do like a series of videos about language learning, and we have a lot to talk about. Chris knows, look at me in my English, a couple of languages. And okay, so what languages do you speak?
Let's see, Spanish and French and Portuguese-ish and Japanese most recently.
Very nice. And so Chris knows a lot of languages, and he has learned them. You've lived in France, right?
Just maybe like a semester.
A semester. So French for a semester.
Oh, but I did live in Belgium.
Okay. So that helps you. And Spanish, how did you learn Spanish?
Spanish, had some in high school, and then just had a lot of Spanish-speaking friends in college, and went to a lot of parties. Just learned it like that.
And for your French, did you know French before going to France and Belgium?
The first time I went to France, I went for a different reason, and because I was going to France, I took like a semester of French, and and so then did a semester in France, and went back and just kept studying.
Cool. Yeah. And what about Japanese? How long have you been in Japan?
Year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you know any Japanese before coming?
I had, how long did I have? Maybe 7 months self-study on YouTube. Yeah, that's it.
And how was that when you got here?
I was pretty silent. Just kind of took it all in a little passively at first, but it was not too bad. Had a lot of English speakers to help me out along the way, but then you got better.
Okay, that's good. So we're talking about language learning, and I've been talking to you guys about a little bit about attitude and what makes a good language learner and a bad language learner. So, Chris, if you could give people one advice or one thing that you think is really, really important for language learning, from all the languages you've learned, everything, all the ways that you've learned different languages, what would be the most important thing for somebody to do when learning a language?
Like in terms of attitude or just
in terms of
in
anything?
General? The most important thing. I'd say there's a lot of important things, but probably the most important thing for me when I learn a language is whatever I learn, put it into practice as soon as you can. So, like, if I learn a new vocabulary word one day or a new phrase or something, then I'll try to use that word or phrase that day as many times as I can. So I'll just shift the conversation so that it goes that way, or just find an opportunity and stick it in. So I think that really helps to like reinforce it.
So you're basically telling me to get what you already have and then use that as much as you can.
Yes.
Like creating opportunities. And how did you do that? Let's say when you were learning Japanese before coming here, you didn't have anybody to practice with. What did you do? Well,
I mean, anytime you start out learning a language, it's hard to use it like from day one. You can, but you kind of have to like have a buddy or something for that who can have just like these, very, very basic, just practice conversation. But once you study just a little bit, get a little bit of a base. Before I came here, you can do a lot of it just passively. You can listen to videos, and whatever you learn, listen for that. grammar that you learn, listen for that. Just try to pick it out. What I was talking about is more once you kind of get to a point where you can converse just a little bit, and then you can start putting into practice what you learn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And so do you think that, because you were talking about having somebody to practice with, and you said that Spanish, for example, you learned without leaving the U.S., right?
While living in the U.S.?
Yeah, while you were there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you say that having like native speakers to practice is something very important?
Yeah, for sure. That was one of the easy things about learning Spanish, is that the native speakers of Spanish were so outgoing that I could literally just kind of sit there and be talked to, show you know a little bit of Spanish, and then everything else you hear is Spanish. So yeah, I think it's really important to have native speakers. Yeah, because you learn things you don't expect to learn with them. Yeah.
Yeah. And in matters of attitude, because I know a lot of people that have lived in the US for a long time and don't speak English, so they have native speakers around them, but they just don't learn the language. And also people that have a lot of Latino friends in the US and don't speak Spanish, and I don't know, it's like I feel a different attitude. They just get annoyed when Latin people start speaking Spanish around them. So, what would you say about attitude and language learning?
Wait. So the attitude about the learner, about the person who's learning themselves.
Yep.
I think usually the biggest attitude problem is people are shy about it, or they feel. It feels weird when you speak a new language, so maybe they feel like they sound like really dumb or something. And they're afraid to make all these mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. That's when you're learning a language. You are going to make this. You're supposed to. If you don't make mistakes, then you don't know what your problems are. I mean, that's just how it is. If everything's perfect, it's like finishing a race before you start it.
Yeah.
And so I'd say the one thing that always helped me is when you listen to a non-native speaker speak your language. So when someone who's non-native speaker speaks English, even if they're like low level or just don't know that much, or maybe their grammar is real off, those aren't the things that I pick up on. I don't notice, they didn't conjugate that verb right. And it doesn't cut the conversation. I just am listening to what they're saying, and sometimes it's kind of endearing. It's kind of charming listening to them because they're interesting. And so I guess the one thing that helps me is I know that person who I'm talking to doesn't hear it the same way that I'm hearing myself talk. Yeah,
that's a good one. I always tell you guys and my students to be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because learning a language is a lot about feeling uncomfortable, feeling out of place. You don't know exactly what you're saying, but it doesn't matter. If people are getting the message, if they're getting the gist, that should be your focus. And everything else comes with time, with practice, and the more confident you become. So
embrace the awkwardness.
Definitely. And I think that's really, really good about what you said about creating these opportunities for you to speak. Because I feel like, people are too shy and they feel like they have to know a lot before they start speaking, and they don't realize that they're never going to get to that point where they're comfortable if they don't go through the uncomfortable. So, that's important.
So, and like the other thing is, while you're learning the language, before you're to a really high level, before you like get mistaken for a native speaker or anything, happens all the time. You're the only person that speaks like you do. So you kind of have this special version of the language that nobody else does. And native speakers really enjoy that. So, it helps.
Yeah.
Might get a girlfriend.
People love a
Once you're a native
foreign
speaker, they
accent.
don't care.